Hello, it's Parm King, the Dungeon Masters for Legends of Barovia, which is a Curse of Strahd campaign. Today on the Dungeon Master Tips, I am going to be talking about describing the room, theater of the mind. Now, a little history about me, a little background. This is the first time I am dungeon mastering in the modern era under 5e. I am also at the same time learning Foundry as we go and learning how to stream, and I've made a mess of all of it already. I've made tremendous amount of mistakes, including streaming, which it's been a total joke and a cluster. However, jumping back several decades, the last time I was a dungeon master and actually played Dungeons and Dragons as well was back when Ravenloft was just a module and before Dungeons and Dragons actually had version numbers. So I've just jumped back into the hobby again in 2020. Actually, a lot of it due to this virus back here in January, and I'm rediscovering a hobby that I once loved a lot and really getting excited and engaging in it. Now, one of the things back then that I did in describing the rooms and the atmosphere was a tip my mother gave me. My mother was a English teacher and also a playwright and directed plays, and she always talked about the importance of the five senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, and touch. And I always thought, how can I incorporate that into my descriptions of Dungeons and Dragons? And I had made a little list back then that made sure that I touched each one of those things. So today I made a little video with some slides, with some step-by-steps, in order to help me really become a better dungeon master, kind of shake the rust off and hone my skill. But maybe you'll find these tips helpful to you as a dungeon master in describing your room. So I'm going to turn off the video so you don't have to see me for a bit and turn on my little display here so that we can go through this together. So here it is, describing the scene, the five senses and atmosphere. So the first thing we need to do is describe the five senses, which is smell, touch, taste, vision, and hearing. Now, vision is kind of the one we've become too reliant upon. In fact, in this modern day, watching so many movies and television shows, we've probably seen the Great Wall of China. We've seen what the Swiss Alps looks like or the Mount Everest. We've seen what dungeons look like in castles. So we don't have to really spend so much time narrating and describing these places. So we can rely and spend more of our time talking about the other senses. Now, smell and taste I mix together a lot. Usually smell is a better descriptor of things because we're not always sticking stuff in our mouth. But sometimes you can taste something from smelling, and I'll just kind of describe that later on. The next thing is touch. And touch doesn't mean just touching something. It also can mean the feeling of wind against your skin, a breeze on your face. It can be aches and pains in the body. It can be the pain of a wound. It could be a hunger pain. The other thing is hearing. Hearing is kind of the invisible foundation of every scene. Sound is so important today in films, in music, even in videos. Bad sound is sometimes worse than bad vision. At least you want to be able to hear what's going on, right? And sometimes we forget how important sound is. The next thing is atmosphere and mood and milieu. This is kind of giving you the overall feeling of what it's like in there. And I put some words here on the screen. For instance, an evil place might be forlorn or bleak, gloomy, haunting, or foreboding. A good place might be jubilant and festive, comfortable, serene. And the size of a place, you can describe size, not just small or large, but you can say immense, narrow, paltry, extensive, generous, vast. So these are all words that we can use to help describe the atmosphere or mood. So let's go to the step by step. Now, I did this for myself, and I actually wrote this down back a long, long time ago, back when I dungeon mastered before, and it's something that I need to improve on and again hone my skills because it's been so long. But the first thing I always like to do is describe the action of what the party just did or the character just did. They're going to tell you they've entered the tavern or they've entered the castle. Now, we can say you've entered, but there's so many better ways of describing you entering something. So you could say you sauntered in, you marched in with the air of authority, you and your party paraded in. You wandered in, you stumbled in, So there's so many ways to describe how you're entering it, because the description of how you entered might also describe what's going on with your party. If you've been on a long, hard, heavy ride, you might just be kind of sauntering in or stumbling into the location. If you're going in there and you're soldiers and you're going to try to command a place, you're going to march into the place, with an air of authority and command. So the action, describing the action of your characters entering in the room that you're about to describe. When we get to touch, we could be talking about temperature changes from outside to inside or inside to outside. You could be talking about a wound that's festering or aches and pains in your body, even hungry. Vision, I like to be, is my least descriptor, because usually when you describe a tavern, we all kind of imagine what a tavern looks like. So usually I talk about the lightness or the darkness, or probably only a couple of important key items in the room that we should be aware of. And the lighting kind of sets the ambiance in the room. Lighting is so important even in describing things. Hearing, well, that could be the creaking of a door or the floorboards. It could be the scurrying of the mouse. It could be villagers talking. It could be the clinking of glasses in a pub. The next is smell, which a lot of the times I mix with taste. It could be the smell of cooking food. It could be a fire. It could be the smell of plants or pipe smoke. It could be a mildew smell, a smell of decay and death. And the last is the mood and the atmosphere, which sets the tone of the room. Now, mood and atmosphere, sometimes you can inject right after action. So let's do a couple of these together. Write these down. I know I did. Action, touch, vision, hearing, smell and taste, combining those, and mood and atmosphere. So let's do a couple of these together. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring myself back into the action. Now, you can go ahead and vote now if you do not want to see me again. No. I'm just kidding. Please don't vote no. Here I am. Now, here is a scene of a tavern. Now, in the Foundry, I made some Theater of the Mind maps, and I did that for two reasons. Number one is in Foundry, which is the online virtual tabletop system that I use to play our game, I want to be able to have the characters on there. They can see themselves, but also they can access their character sheets. And if I want to introduce an NPC, they can interact with that NPC. But also, it creates a single picture, a frame of reference, which every single player is seeing, and it's kind of setting the tone, the vision. It's kind of the TV screen, if you will, of the image of the place that they're entering in. But now what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the action, touch, vision, hearing, smell, taste, and atmosphere and describe entering this room. Now, I'm going to wing this. I'm going to actually close my eyes. It's sometimes a little bit easier if I kind of visualize it by closing my eyes. So that's what I'm going to do. It's been a hard ride. You dismount your horses and your asses are sore and bones ache. The autumn air is cold. You open the door and venture down the stairs into a welcoming of warmth from the fire blazing in the hearth. You see a few of the locals sitting around, perhaps villagers and farmers. You overhear them talking about the last harvest of autumn and the cold, hard winter setting in. There's some pipeweed in the air that you smell, along with some venison stew. A fresh mug of ale and a warm bowl of venison stew will sure cure your hunger. What do you do? So in this, I hit the action. They got off their horses. Their asses were sore from a long ride. And they entered in and ventured down the stairs. We talked a little bit about the touch, the cold air, and the warmth of vision, where the mood. The vision was the villagers sitting around. You heard the villagers. They were talking about the last harvest. It was going to be a cold winter. You could smell the pipeweed and almost smell and taste the venison stew. And we talked a little bit about hunger. It wasn't a long description. In fact, I didn't even talk about how many tables or chairs, the color of the walls. But that's what I'm talking about. Just really short and sweet, kind of setting the stage and letting your characters go off. Let's try another one here. I got another one. Let's see. Do I got another one? Yes, I do. I have an old bookstore here. So let's take a look at the old bookstore. Our character's going to enter an old bookstore, perhaps try to buy a book or something. So again, action, touch, vision, hearing, smell, taste, and atmosphere. This is the vision, let's say, in the theater of the mind that all the players are seeing, and I'm going to describe them entering for the first time. You push open the heavy wood oak door to a creaking sound as you step into this misty, mildew-smelling room. The summer sun cascades among the room, and you see a higgledy-piggledy hodgepodge books on the floor, tables, chairs, and bookshelves. There's a dust in the air and a smell of old parchment. You hear some shuffling steps from the next room, and an old man enters. What do? Now, that could have been a lot better, but I was just winging it, describing a sound. I was thinking about entering, how they were going to enter, maybe a heavy old wooden door. There's obviously some sunlight coming in. There's some books in a hodgepodge, maybe higgledy-piggledy fashion. It's kind of messy. There was dust in the air, smell of parchment, and then you can hear the shuffling of some steps. So again, just describing it, hitting all those notes. It doesn't have to be perfect. I am certainly far from perfect. Need a lot of work on this, but you're getting the idea. Let's do one more together. All right, the Armory. All right, here we go. We got the Armory here. And what do we got? Okay. You take a large step across the muddy puddle that sits in front of the threshold to this armory. As you step in, you're blasted with a blaze of heat from the open furnace. Sweat starts to pour against your brow. You hear the banging and clanging of the blacksmith's hammer against the anvil, and there's a metallic smell in the air. The blacksmith looks up at you. What do? Again, not perfect. I saw that the entrance was kind of open. There was a big threshold. It looks like there's maybe some mud, water on the floor there. There's a big fire in the front, and so they're blasted with the heat. They hear the clanking of the hammer of the smith's hammer on the anvil. So it was just kind of a basic descriptor, but you're just hitting all those tones. You're not getting really heavy into the description what the room looks like, because in Foundry we're setting that picture as a frame of reference, but you're describing the action, the touch, the vision, the hearing of what they're hearing, even the smell, the metallic smell, feeling, or maybe metallic taste in the air. Again, I have to work on these. Now I'm going to give you one last tip here. Let me just finish this here. One last tip. And you guys probably already know this, and you're going to think this is silly, but one of your best friends is this place right here. It's the synonyms, the thesaurus online. So you could just type in a word and you just want other descriptive words. Let's say just gloomy, right? So we just type in gloomy there, and what do we get? Well, we get a bunch of other words. We can say bleak, forlorn, murky, overcast, dismal, dreary. Let's say another room, which is, or let's say a sound. Let's say a clang. Let's see if clang, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up. Clang, clash, jangle, noise. Let's do some other descriptive words. And we're using adjectives here, right? Words, well, this was not an adjective, it was actually a noun, but adjectives. So we can use, what's another thing for, joyous. So, because it's cheerful, jubilant, merry, exuberant, festive, heartwarming. These are another descriptive words you can describe in a room. So use the thesaurus, use the synonyms. You can also use antonyms if you're looking for opposite words. Maybe you can't think of the opposite word. Let's say you want an opposite word for joyous. I don't know if they have antonyms on here. Oh, I think there is an antonyms website. Let's check this out. And synonyms. God, I'm a horrible speller, horrible typer. I'm a horrible at everything. Synonyms, and there was another one that was called synonyms and the antonyms. Maybe it's on the same site. Maybe I'm just dumb and I don't know how to use the website. Of course. Historical, isn't there? Well, it said antonyms. Well, I'm sure they're out there somewhere. Anyway, I hope this video was helpful for you. If it was, please click like. Again, I'm going to be working on my descriptions, going through the action, touch, vision, hearing, taste, and smell, as well as the mood and atmosphere. Hopefully giving my players a better experience when they enter in the room. Watch my other video on making theater of the mind videos so you can kind of see what I do in Foundry, which is just kind of the picture. One thing nice about Foundry is you can also put a little sound in there, like some ambient sound in there. It also adds to the atmosphere. Again, thanks for watching. I hope this was helpful for you. And if you find the Antonyms website, put a link in below for me, okay? Thanks much, and until later, make sure you roll critical 20s. If you don't, and you roll a critical 1, you should be using the critical failure tables. All right, adios.